My in-laws said, "We're taking the family to Europe." But when the bill came, they all looked at me and my husband. The restaurant was one of those places with cloth napkins and wine lists thicker than phone books. My father-in-law had insisted on it to celebrate the big announcement. 10 of us sat around that table. His parents, his 2 sisters and their husbands, his brother and us. "This is going to be the trip of a lifetime," my mother-in-law had gushed, passing around photos of villas in Tuscany on her iPad. 2 whole weeks. The entire family together. She squeezed my hand like we were best friends, though she'd spent the last 3 years calling me what's your name at family gatherings. Sometimes she'd just point at me and say her. The waiter brought the check in a leather folder. $847 for one dinner. My father-in-law opened it, glanced at the total, then slid it directly in front of my husband. His sisters suddenly became very interested in their phones. His brother excused himself to the bathroom. The timing was almost perfectly choreographed. "Well," my father-in-law said, leaning back in his chair with that smile I'd learned to hate. "You two have been talking about wanting to spend more time with family." My husband's face went pale. We'd been saving for a down payment on a house. Our account had exactly $23,400 in it. Every dollar earned through double shifts and skipped vacations. "Dad, we didn't know this was going to the Europe trip," my mother-in-law interrupted sweetly. "We figured since you don't have kids yet, you have more disposable income. Everyone else has real expenses. Private school tuition, mortgages, country club dues. You understand how it is." We lived in a 1-bedroom apartment above a dry cleaner. His sister owned a 4-story brownstone in the suburbs with a 3-car garage. But somehow we were the ones with disposable income. "How much is the trip?" I asked quietly. "About $8,000 per couple." His brother's wife chimed in, returned from wherever she'd been hiding. "That includes flights, hotels, and activities. But obviously you're covering tonight too since you suggested this restaurant." I hadn't suggested anything. His mother had texted me the address that morning with, "Be there at 7. Dress nice." My husband looked at me. I could see him calculating, trying to figure out how to say no without causing World War III. But I was done calculating. Done with the casual digs about us being childless and therefore less important. Done with being excluded from family photos and being asked to split costs. Done with his mother calling me what's your name while expecting me to fund her entire Italian fantasy. I stood up, grabbed my purse, and pulled out my wallet. I placed exactly $80 on the table, our portion of the meal with tip, and looked at my husband. "Coming?" His family stared. His father's face turned an interesting shade of red. "You can't just," his mother started. "We can't afford an $8,000 trip," I said simply. "We're saving for a house. If you want to go to Europe, that's wonderful. Have an amazing time. But we won't be joining you, and we won't be paying for anyone else to go either." The walk to the car was silent. I halfway expected my husband to go back inside, to apologize, to make excuses for my rude behavior. Instead, he opened my door, got in the driver's seat, and started laughing. Not a nervous laugh, a real one. "I should have done that years ago," he said. "God, that felt so good." That's 3 days ago. This morning, I woke up to 47 missed calls and 23 long texts. My sister-in-law left a voicemail explaining that they'd found a cheaper option in Portugal instead. Only $4,000 per couple. Wasn't that generous? They'd even let us pay in installments. Then my mother-in-law sent a text. Just 5 words that made my blood run very cold. "Dad's will was updated yesterday." I stared at my phone screen until the words blurred. My husband was in the shower, singing off-key like nothing had happened. Like his mother hadn't just dropped a nuclear bomb into our morning. The thing about my father-in-law was simple. He had money, real money, the kind that bought silence and loyalty and made grown adults perform like trained seals for the promise of inheritance. His construction company had been worth $4.3 million when he sold it 5 years ago. Since then, he'd been living off investments and rental properties, playing patriarch like it was a full-time job. And the will. God, the will. It hung over every family gathering like a storm cloud. Nobody talked about it directly, but everybody knew. His oldest daughter, Vivian, had gotten herself written out twice already. Once for marrying someone he didn't approve of. Once for questioning his political views at Thanksgiving. She crawled back both times, apologizing, performing the required penance. Now she was back in the will with a projected $800,000 inheritance. His younger daughter, Rochelle, had never been written out. She was the golden child. Perfect grades, perfect husband, perfect children enrolled in perfect schools. She'd get at least $1.2 million, plus the lake house. His son, my husband, was supposed to get $900,000 and the rental properties. We'd seen the previous version of the will 2 years ago, when his father had pneumonia and thought he was dying. He'd gathered everyone to his hospital bed for a dramatic reading, like some twisted Victorian novel. Then he recovered and spent the next 6 months reminding everyone what they stood to lose. My husband turned off the shower. I could hear him humming. I called my mother-in-law back. She answered on the first ring. "So you saw my text?" she said. Not a question. "What did he change?" "Well," she drew out the word like taffy. "Your little performance at dinner upset him quite badly. He has a heart condition, you know. The stress could have killed him."